Hey, there's no shame in trying things that people ain't never tried before.
Alright, boys. Today we're going through utilitarianism. Now, utilitarianism is the idea that whatever serves the greatest good for the greatest number of people is right. Usually, this means a nanny state where people cede power to authorities to pursue this greatest good on their behalf. Now, this is based on a few conversations I've had in the last few weeks with a Utila boy, so I'll be using some examples from those. I grew up listening to a comedian, Patrice O'Neill, but never fully appreciated him until a few months ago, when I discovered his radio show and radio appearances, but more importantly, his philosophy. He's dead now, but in life he was fat, black, and racist. Grew up in a single-mother household, poor, and went to prison on fake rape allegations. Now, based on these premises, I should hate this guy, and yet he was captivating and intelligent, witty, charismatic, thoughtful, interesting. Many of his insights, philosophies, were useful, applicable, and made sense. Now, understandably, they were strange, especially considering his context, and yet they were so fascinating, and I wanted to understand them. Now, the utilitarian boy I was talking to dismissed him, saying, well, you know, Skimmy, he is black and the result of a poor single-mother household. Disregard everything he says. Now, this surprised me, especially coming from a left-leaning guy, because, well, one, why should I judge someone based on the color of their skin and not on the content of their character, but especially considering he's making sense. And the response from the utilitarian was, his good and my good are different. What works for him probably won't work for the rest of us. So that acknowledgement just biggity begs the question, boys. How do you define the greatest good for the greatest number of people, knowing good is different, person to person? Well, Skimmerlit, it's whatever's good for the greatest number of people. Well, what is that good? Define it. You are dismissing valid arguments based on assumptions, in this case skin color and class. So if you're going to do this and impose your good on people, at least define it and be consistent. Without one defined goal, one defined good, you suddenly have authorities, powerful authorities, imposing not good on people, conflicting with one another. And that's even implying the one defined good, should you find one, is actually good for the greatest number of people and not good because you are powerful. Because in that situation, you're not a hero. You're a tyrant. When your solutions to this imposed through power good are put everyone on drugs so they're always happy, or engineer them so they cannot know any better and are always happy, and your least overstepped solution is make them reliant on welfare and then crush undesired behavior, you're a fucking tyrant. You selfishly impose your good because it's not effective or desirable enough for people to choose it freely. And the response here is, of course, people are too stupid to make that choice for themselves, so it's our responsibility to make it for them. But one, what makes it your responsibility? And two, more importantly, what gives you the right? the answer to responsibility to help being morality, okay, that's valid. The response to the right to impose being the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Okay, we've been through that. But Skimmerlit, they're experts. They know better than you or me. They're more than qualified to make decisions on everyone's behalf. Well, there are two ways we can approach this one. One, they're human. Power will corrupt them, or they will use it improperly. That's how humans work. But let's take the harder route and say they aren't humans. They're your engineered race who can't choose and can't think, aren't human. Or are computers that will obviously never, ever, 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 ever fail or malfunction. They are still using power to impose their good, their ideas on people, knowing different goods and different ideas exist and work for different people. Oh, but Skimmerlit, the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Okay. Now, although all that could go horribly wrong, working as intended, I would love to say 3 words, boys. Can't be fucked. I don't care. Many meetings for the first one for my audience, I'm sure. But that arrogant, dismissive, conceited right to impose is why I can't. Even if I try to make my own life, make my own way for myself and others elsewhere, you think it is your right to take what's mine from me and put me under your system. That's why I can't ignore it. It's not just the greatest good for the greatest number of people in my community. It's everyone, everywhere. All-encompassing. Humanity gotta go. You're not allowed to think and feel and act. That can't happen. There's potential misery there. We gotta stomp it out. But this is all high-in-the-sky abstract, society-spanning concepts. We cannot conceptualize this. Except we can, on a personal level. These people act in a very specific, very arrogant way. Let me explain. This is the second conversation with the utility boy about utilitarianism. And after a while, he, I, and his friend, of course, couldn't get anywhere, influencing each other. So we moved the conversation elsewhere. One of them mentioned they had a bad relationship with their father. Now, I have an awful relationship with my father, and it was very challenging to overcome. It didn't start in, but when I decided it was a problem and needed to change, it started as this insurmountable anger and resentment, and it was causing many problems in my life. And over about 2 years, I finally worked it to a place where it was not resentment and anger and something which would stunt me, but rather just an unfortunate thing. Sadness. Great sadness. Makes me cry. I cry about it. But just sadness. And from where it was, I can work with sadness. I can live with sadness. I can't live with that resentment. And I was very proud of where I worked it. That was very challenging for me. So, to relate, because that's what you're supposed to do with friends, right? You're supposed to relate and share vulnerability and prop each other up. I offered one of the stories about, I went to Flagler, right? And the first night there, I started talking about my dad and whatnot, and I started crying in the dining hall like a fucking bitch. And I thought it was, funny, relatable, and something that would further whatever it is we were doing, whatever bonding we were doing. But they took it as a declaration or a statement and disagreed. I'm not sure how you disagree with I'm not sure how you disagree with a story, but it became a conflict out of nowhere. You see, in this situation, my good was, hey, I overcame this problem with my dad and I, or at least I worked it somewhere good. Somewhere I can live with and feel happy about. A story to relate. Now, their good was, you shouldn't cry about that, or you need it to be in a place where you aren't crying about it. So, your good is not good, it's actually bad. Everything you thought you accomplished, you didn't. In fact, you actually made your own life worse. You need professional help or you cannot live a good life. I have a minor in psychology, and that makes me fit to judge your life and tell you what you need to do to be happy and successful. Now, this is wrong, argumentatively and socially, for a few reasons, but all demonstrate why utilitarianism is bad, even on the small scale. So let's go through these in no particular order. Or maybe all at once, in one, because I'm feeling lazy and disorganized, boys. But we'll start with how these two goods sorted themselves out. Now, they present themselves as analytical and empathetic, but this approach was neither. Upon finding a discrepancy, an analytical person will try to understand why the discrepancy exists. An empathetic person will see someone is feeling opposite or a different way and try to see it from their perspective. Again, this was neither. This was neither analytical nor empathetic. This was an authoritarian approach. They didn't say, I think our definitions of good are different. My definition doesn't include crying over something I'm supposed to be over, so please define your definition of good. Tell me why you feel that way. And have you considered this solution? But that's not what they did. That's not what a utilitarian does. That's not what a person who thinks they have the right to impose their worldview on you does. They saw something they disagreed with. They said, you're wrong. This is what you're going to do to change it. They destroyed it and tried to rebuild it in their image. The greatest good for the greatest number of people. The greatest good being 2 versus 1. Assuming the right from assumed fitness while dismissing a valid and effective approach simply because it's different rather than trying to understand it based on assumptions alone. Let's use our greater numbers. Yeah, you like that? I'm fucking clever, don't you? Let's use our greater numbers and false authority to shut this person down without trying to understand because it's different and we disagree. And again, this is on a personal level. Not even in response to a declaration or a statement, but a story intended to relate. Can you imagine what this looks like on a larger scale? I don't want to live in that society, boys. But they'll try to force it on you. That's why you need to pay attention to it. But that's utilitarianism, boys. It's a dismissive, short-sighted, brutish ideology for dismissive, short-sighted, brutish people. But further, boys. This is why I stay on guard, you slithery little slimemans. Man. Fortunately, that was just a conversation where people used my vulnerability to be petty. Can you imagine if they had been smarter and more malevolent? What could they have accomplished? They could have gotten me fired. They could have gotten me... What is it? What's the word? Is it expelled when you're in a higher learning institution? Whatever it is. They could have gotten me removed from it. They could have gotten me blackballed from future jobs. They could have got my channel removed. They could have done any number of things. If we were in a utilitarian state, they could have had me jailed. That's why I live on guard. That's why I have few friends. That's why I keep my vulnerabilities publicly to a minimum. People are predatory shit, and putting your head in the sand is stupid at best. Better to face it, be miserable, but be effective, boys. And that about rippity wraps this one up, boys. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. It's 3 a.m. I can't tell how petty this is, and normally... Well, no, because I made my points well in this. I'm almost certain. I don't want to say that for sure, but I'm almost certain I made my points. And I think the personal element, the pettiness, what I'm a little worried about, is necessary for making it. I'm not sure. Either way, I enjoyed making it. I'm very sweaty. It's 80 degrees. It's really hot. Like if you enjoyed, because that helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit not more than weekly. We do this shit occasionally. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. I didn't really ask any questions this time either. I don't know, boys. Just comment your thoughts. What do you think about utilitarianism? Next video's gonna be a little bit lighter. This one's been cooking for a little while, boys. It's been cooking for a little while. But thanks again for watching, everybody, really. I am very glad you're here, and I look forward to doing this with you guys. Fuck. We have a lot of fun on this channel. More fun than you know, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.